In light of declining sentiment for online courses, here's where 99% of info products go wrong. Before I begin, I want to set some context. Online gurus and course sellers and the idea of online education has been around for a long time. Selling information isn't anything new. Selling information exists in schools, in tertiary education, it exists all around us. We also have information being sold outside of these establishments with consultants, right? Independent consultants who finish up time in a given industry and then they consult for various businesses. This has been around for a long time. And even Steve Jobs was critical of these consultants, saying that a consultant never really understands the true nature of running a business because they aren't held responsible for the suggestions and the recommendations when they're consulting on that business. Rather, they come in, they give an overview or analysis, they give some recommendations, and then they exit. Steve felt that this was unfair, that for consultants, they aren't held accountable for the decisions and recommendations that they give, and therefore, due to this lack of accountability, they can't really be trusted as a source of recommendation or ideas. But I think the growing demand and distaste with online courses really stems from how we view the education system. We know that schools are outdated. We know that tertiary education systems are propped up and backed by government. Essentially, you finish school, you reach out to the government, they give you a loan, and then you go to these tertiary education systems. They put in additional courses, classwork, and make-up courses every single year to increase tuition fees. Because ultimately, these tertiary education systems are, at the end of the day, businesses. They operate off cash flow and tuition fees to make money. Having studied at one myself, I experienced this firsthand. If I take my journey and my dad's journey, we both have a passion for marketing. We both ended up working in marketing. My dad's journey started finishing school, and then when he finished, he went and got an apprenticeship at Cadbury. He went and worked at Cadbury at the marketing and sales department and went store to store to independent groceries and sold in Cadbury at a store level. He learned firsthand in that first year what it was like to be on the road, what it was like to work in the business and to interact with store owners who were engaging with the company. He then progressed and worked up the corporate ladder to higher up roles in account management, eventually moving to an agency and then starting his own agency. If I take my path, I finished school, but instead of going in on an apprenticeship and working in a real business and applying myself, I went and studied marketing and finance. And for 4 years and $40,000 down the drain, I learned all of the theoretical knowledge behind financial modeling and behind marketing. Things like the 4 Ps, price, placement, promotion, and product. Now, once I had finished my 4 years of studying and spent my $40,000 thanks to the government, I went and got my graduate role at Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble, very similar to Cadbury, is a fast-moving consumer good company where I went on the road working with store owners, independent grocery, and learned the inside outs of the business. In that year, I then progressed and started my first run on the corporate ladder at Procter & Gamble as an account manager. Now, did I need the 4 years of education and did I need to spend the $40,000? Well, from Procter & Gamble's perspective, I did, because the benchmark is now set on having achieved tertiary education and a certificate. So I required the 4 years and $40,000 to gain my bit of paper that got me into the same entry-level job that my dad had done 40 years earlier. So it's interesting how the two paths have changed over time. Now, obviously, universities have realized that marketing could be something they could charge tuition fees, so they've introduced it as a subject. And while I think marketing as a subject is very important to teach at university, I think the most valuable teachings often come from doing the thing and actually applying yourself. And this has given rise to a world where a lot of people are looking at universities and saying, well, if I don't want to go the traditional path, if I don't want to end up having a job and being employed by someone that requires this bit of paper, are there ways to shortcut my success by learning from someone else who has gone before me? And this is sort of where the concept of acquiring a high value skill, learning something that is valuable, may that be starting an agency, may that be building a personal brand, it could be learning how to run meta ads, and then teaching someone that skill so they can then learn it faster, apply themselves, and make money. So we're essentially seeing a shortening of the time horizon from when someone comes in, learns a skill, and goes back and becomes a teacher of that skill as well. People are essentially creating their own independent universities online, and instead of getting a piece of paper, you end with ideally a high value skill that is gonna earn you a lot more pieces of paper in the long term. Now, the issue is where someone hasn't learned the high value skill and then they become the online guru or teacher, or they take a high value skill that actually hasn't generated a lot of wealth for them, but they position it as something that can generate a lot of wealth online. This is the gap where you have dishonest teachers, but also online gurus, and it breaks down the whole entire education system online. The question on whether these business models actually generate money in the long run. Dropshipping, SMMA, Forex, crypto, e-commerce, these are all examples of models that hypothetically, yes, could earn money, but the question needs to become on, is the model still valid? And does the person teaching that model actually have the credibility and the skills to be teaching? This creates information asymmetry, where you have people that are positioning themselves as highly knowledgeable, and the models that they are teaching, they are positioning as highly valuable, whereas we don't know as the consumer of these whether either of these variables are true. In this scenario, it is very difficult to determine whether the person teaching and the material they are teaching on is actually going to be valuable to us. There are two main things we should be assessing. One, has the person actually done the thing? Have they built high value skills that are going to generate them income in line with what they are telling us? And next is whether that model is actually valid. You need to conduct independent research, and you should look at the model and ensure that what they are teaching actually has legs and credibility. Now, this isn't too different to university. Ultimately, you attend university so that you are more likely to be employed in the long term. When assessing a university, you should be looking at these things. What is the likelihood of employment on the back end of this degree? How well respected is the university, the teachers inside that university that are represented by it, and how well respected is the degree that you are about to embark on? The same return on investment strategy should be applied to both. If I was to invest my time and my money into this university, what will it benefit me in the long run? The gap we have in university is that most professors are theoretical. They are academics. They are people that have excelled in university, and then they've gone on to study further theoretically in university with PhDs, with next to zero practical knowledge. Very, very few of them have gone and run businesses or even worked in businesses and then come back to university to study. Because once they do that, they tend to earn money, and people tend to like earning money, and university academics are not paid very well. They're doing PhDs and masters and thesis. Although there's a lot of academic upside in what they're doing, it doesn't generate a lot of income. That is why once they get a taste of the real world and they go out and they earn in a business, they tend not to come back. The difficulty there is that the university needs to employ these academics so that they actually have an income so they can keep studying their PhDs, masters, and thesis. As a result, the people teaching the material are highly theoretical and have limited to no practical real-world knowledge. This is the gap I see in universities all of the time. The theory is fantastic, but until you apply that theory in real life, there is little to no real-world application. The next gap I see in the online course world is that people sell one segment of the solution. For example, if you are selling personal branding and content creation, you need to connect the dots between how someone is going to get a return on investment for the money that they pay you. It's all great and well saying that someone is going to build a personal brand, but a personal brand for what? The personal brand and the building the followers is the means to the end. The end is generating an income from it. So if you cannot help someone monetize it, then the followers are really just followers on a screen and worthless. Now, there's two ways you could go about this. You could target a group that already know how to monetize awareness and traffic. For example, real estate agents, because most real estate agents will know that if they can increase the number of eyeballs on themselves, they will get more deal flow and be able to convert that traffic. Therefore, the appeal of just being able to build a personal brand would work for them, and they can see the return on investment because they can convert those followers on a screen into dollars in the bank. Alternatively, you need to adjust and you need to look at how we go from creating followers into monetizing those followers into paying customers. Ultimately, that is what your course and your teaching will be benchmarked on. What is the return on investment? The dollars they put in to buy versus the dollars they get returned from building a brand, but also monetizing a brand as well. The difficulty here is a lot of people go in, build a brand, and then the only way they can figure out to monetize that brand is by teaching other people how to build a brand. This creates the creator pyramid, aka someone comes in, builds a brand, teaches the next person how to build a brand, and that's how they're monetizing. And then as that person's built a brand, they look around and go, oh, well, how do I monetize? Oh, I'll teach someone how to create a brand. And we have the creator pyramid. I highly recommend, if you are building a brand and you want to teach other people how to build a brand, demonstrate that you can monetize it outside of just teaching other people how to build a brand. Could be user-generated content, could be brand deals, could be fitness coaching, could be anything outside of teaching other people just how to build a brand. You could build your own agency, or you could build your own e-commerce brand. Leverage your personal brand for something else to demonstrate its value outside of just building an audience to teach them back how to build an audience. Outside of the first two, which I feel are more glaringly obvious, that either someone hasn't done the thing or they're exaggerating the truth of how far they've done the thing, and being stuck in the creator pyramid where you're teaching someone to make money from the thing that you're teaching, would be that most people who are great at marketing are pretty shitty at building products. Now, there's three core functions in any business. You have marketing, sales, and fulfillment. The problem is, as you start to wear more and more hats, you need to scale and hire a team. You need to identify your strengths and double down on those, and identify your weaknesses and hire for those. The biggest gap I see in most online courses is that people are very good at marketing on the front end. They're okay at sales, or they're happy to hire a sales team, but they invest little to no money in the fulfillment. We've had to completely redesign fulfillment multiple times over, because serving 50 people versus serving 100 versus serving 1,000 is a very different product scope. This is what I call the voltage drop. That is, things that work today have a certain voltage drop where they can expand to a point and scale, and then the voltage drops. At this point of voltage drop, you need to get very good at fixing it and identifying before the voltage drop is going to happen. This requires a lot of investment, and people look at info and the information course selling space as a very high margin business. I think if people adjusted the mindset and made it a normal margin business around 30% instead of 60 to 80%, and said, no, I'm going to keep it at 30% because I'm going to invest 20 to 30% back into purely product and fulfillment, the whole space will be a lot better off, because ultimately servicing each customer is going to take some variable expense. You can't just rely on the fixed expense of having built the course and having built all the material and expect people to do it. It's the age-old argument of, is it the teacher's fault or the student? I truly believe it is the teacher's fault to make sure that the people at the back of the classroom that hold themselves the least accountable and are the least engaged are the most engaged in the material. That is the difference between an okay and a great teacher. Someone that engages the back of the classroom with students that are unengaged, with students that are unresponsive, and with students that can't hold themselves accountable. It is on you as the educator to make your education as interesting as possible, because ultimately you as the educator are going to be benchmarked on the return on investment from what they have spent on your product. The biggest learnings for myself has been how to keep people accountable. Normally, the people that are building these courses are self-starters. They're highly motivated. They get up early in the morning. They can hold themselves accountable. They're disciplined. They are motivated. But the people coming in buying the course are not of the same type, are not cut from the same cloth. They are often purchasing a course for this additional accountability, for the implementation, to help hold themselves accountable. My biggest focus has been putting in more human touch points and humanizing the entire experience. We live so much on the digital world that the importance of community and human interaction is highlighted more than ever. Putting in human touch points is expensive and it adds variable cost, but that is your point of difference in building a good and a great product. And nearly every time someone is successful in the course, they have an 8 to 9 activity score. And when someone is slow and less successful, they have a 3 to 4 activity score. So I know that this statistic alone of how engaged they are in the community is the biggest determinant in their success. So the question becomes, how do you create mass engagement from an individual? How do you make sure that they are bought in and engaged in the product the whole way through? The 6 biggest changes we introduced into Amplify was bringing a full-time concierge on, where we cover our onboardings with every single client and make sure that they are set up correctly, because within the first 3 to 7 days, we know that that time is crucial, making sure that they're set up correctly, but also that we can fast track their results within the first 7 days. Next is ensuring that we have 3, 7, and 30-day check-ins, and these are scheduled into the calendar. Daily huddle attendance became one of the biggest predictors of success, and we added these huddles in at every different time zone to ensure that we could cover both US, Europe and UK, and Australian time zones. We improved our drop-off tracking. It was very easy to keep on top of people who were succeeding in the course and posting and engaging, but for us it became who was going silent, who was someone that was getting left behind. And this ethos of no content creator left behind became very prominent in all of our internal meetings. Lastly, I decided to hire a lot of people in fulfillment. I think a reason why a lot of people aren't successful is they try to do everything and they have this belief that, because I built the personal brand around myself and because I'm the one who's creating the content, no one can teach like I can teach. And this just objectively isn't true. I hired client success managers who are other content creators who have been very successful in the space and built successful coaching businesses. And I pay them on a monthly retainer to deliver coaching within my community. Having the ability to delegate and pay coaches who have successful businesses to speak on a daily basis and manage the community alongside me was one of the biggest changes that I made. And I speak with founders all of the time who are in similar positions and they refuse to give up and relinquish control on the fulfillment. For me, this is one of the first things you should focus on optimizing and finding ways you can increase your delivery without increasing your time. We know when people come in, content creation is up against all of the things in their life that come up. We know that people are busy. We know that life gets in the way. Families, jobs, clients all take them away from completing course material and from creating content, which are two of the most important things that they need to be doing to be successful inside Amplify. To reduce this barrier, we made the content as concise as possible. It wasn't about more information. It was about taking out information and giving them exactly what they need at each point and increasing the level of human touch and accountability from all of our content coaches with daily huddles, but also the touch points with the onboarding, day 3, day 7, and day 30. It's been a shift in mindset, and I feel a lot of people in the info space could benefit massively from, instead of trying to squeeze as high as possible margins in their business, to reinvesting and looking at the longevity of their business. I would much rather take a 30 to 40% margin instead of a 60 to 80% margin if I know the business is going to stand and build month on month. You are going to be judged on your product, whether it's your lead magnets, your low ticket offers, or your main high ticket offer. Reinvest in your product, invest in people to help you build out the product and to share the load. The best thing you can do is to help delegate and transition from the founder of doing everything to the CEO who's building a proper team. I believe this is where 99% of course sellers go wrong. They see the high margin of info-based businesses and they resell the same product 1,000 times without ever innovating or improving the product. Instead, they buy fancy cars, go on expensive holidays, and they document a lifestyle that they then need to maintain to sell more of their course. I see it as my responsibility to the coaching team, to the CSM, to my existing and future clients to reinvest back into the product. That's why I don't spend on fancy cars, expensive holidays, or go and create an unrealistic persona of my marketing. I don't need a lifestyle of glitz, glamour, and luxury to sell my product. Ultimately, people need to realize that these cash flow businesses are cash cows and you can make a lot of money from them, but that money needs to be reinvested if you ever want to have longevity in the space. For us, I see Amplify transitioning from info into technology as we build out our creator dashboard and as we continue to release creator tools that lower the barrier to content creation. This is the future, and I see technology and community being the biggest pillars that hold up Amplify. Information is great, but without accountability, it is nothing. And without implementation, there is no benefit to it. Information alone will not get the job done. You need accountability and implementation to see any results. Our goal with technology is to lower the barrier and to provide the execution and implementation for you. The long and short of it is that you won't see me driving a Ferrari or Lamborghini anytime soon. We are focused on reinvesting into the product, building an office and a team here in Monday, and there is no appetite really to be investing in anything else because I don't think it is necessary to paint an unrealistic picture of what earning online looks like. And two, I just think it's financially irresponsible. And I think probably the biggest information asymmetry is financial literacy for everyday people. Living below your means is one of the best things that you can be doing. And beyond that, you should just be reinvesting back into the business so it has longevity and growth into the future. If anyone is in the info space right now, I highly recommend finding a fantastic chief product officer who's going to come in and be focused on building a great product. Most people in the info space are great marketers, great salesmen, but not great product builders. Your work is never finished and the product can always be improved. If you are building a coaching business or you are interested in moving into info, then I recommend you check out the Coach's Playbook. I basically put everything from marketing, sales, and fulfillment, all the things that you need to be focused on and where and how to build a really great product in 2025. You can grab it, link below. It's only $29 and you can pick it up today.